Alice was a bright and disciplined girl when she first entered high school. Raised by her single mother, Mrs. Helen, she had been taught good morals and always focused on her studies. Alice was highly intelligent and dedicated to her academic work. During her junior classes, she became known for her exceptional grades and work ethic. She was always in the top 5 of her class and frequently won awards and prizes at school competitions, including science fairs, essay writing contests, and spelling bees. Her teachers were proud of her, and her classmates looked up to her as a role model. Alice was often asked for help with homework, and her reputation as a hardworking and brilliant student grew throughout her first few years at school. However, not everyone was happy about her success. Some of the girls in her class, particularly Lisa, Patricia, and Cynthia, grew increasingly jealous of Alice's achievements. They felt that she was receiving too much attention from the teachers and that she was too focused on her studies. These girls were known for their laid-back attitude, often skipping classes and spending time on their phones or in the schoolyard, but they had always struggled academically. The more Alice excelled, the more they resented her. They started making fun of her for always being so serious about her studies. "You think you're better than everyone else," Patricia would sneer whenever Alice received another prize. "You're so boring, always stuck in those books." At first, Alice ignored the teasing. She didn't care what they thought because she was focused on her goals. But as time passed, Alice began to notice how they would gossip behind her back, laughing at her success and making snide comments. She was hurt by their words, but what hurt her even more was realizing that these girls, who she had once considered friends, no longer saw her as one of their own. One afternoon, during a school break, Lisa approached Alice with a sly smile. "You know, Alice, you're really missing out on life," she said, leaning in close. "You work so hard, but you're not even living. You need to have some fun. You can't be serious all the time." Alice didn't know how to respond. She was confused. She had always thought that studying hard and achieving success was the key to a bright future. But Lisa's words made her think. Maybe she was missing out on something. Maybe the girls were right, maybe she needed to loosen up and have some fun, even if it meant letting go of a strict routine. The teasing continued, and over time, Alice began to feel alienated from her old friends. Lisa, Patricia, and Cynthia started inviting Alice to hang out with them more often. At first, Alice resisted, unsure about leaving her studies behind. But eventually, the pressure from her peers became too much. She began to spend more time with them, often skipping classes to hang out in the schoolyard, go to the nearby mall, or even sneak into the senior students' hostel. It was at this point that Alice started to change. Her uniform became shorter, her makeup more noticeable, and her focus shifted from her textbooks to her phone. She stopped participating in academic competitions and began prioritizing her social life instead. Alice's attitude changed completely. She stopped paying attention in class, spent most of her time on her phone, and even started sleeping in class due to staying up late chatting online. Her teachers noticed the change and were concerned, but she dismissed their warnings. One day, during a mathematics lesson, her teacher, Mrs. Blessing, caught her using her phone comfortably in the class. "Alice, bring that phone here," she demanded. Alice reluctantly handed it over to her. "You will get it back after school," she said, placing it in her drawer. Alice was furious. After the lesson, she went to complain to her friends. They laughed and told her, "Don't worry, we'll find a way to get back at her." They encouraged her to ignore the teacher and continue having fun. Mrs. Blessing, concerned about Alice's sudden change, decided to report the issue to her mother. When Mrs. Helen heard what the teacher said, she was shocked. "My daughter can never do such a thing. She is well behaved." "You must be mistaken," she argued. She refused to believe that Alice was changing for the worse. Days later, Alice was caught using her phone in class again. This time, Mrs. Blessing decided to make an example of her. "Go outside and kneel down," she ordered firmly, pointing towards the corridor where other students could see her. Alice hesitated, looking around in embarrassment. But Mrs. Blessing's stern eyes left her no choice. She picked up her bag and dragged herself outside, kneeling just outside the door. Students passing by whispered and giggled, and Alice burned with shame. She had never felt so humiliated before. This, to her, was the ultimate insult. The following day, Mrs. Helen stormed the school, demanding that Mrs. Blessing be removed. "How dare you punish my daughter for a mere phone? You have no right," she yelled. The school management, afraid of controversy, dismissed Mrs. Blessing. Alice and her friends celebrated. With no one to caution her, she became worse. She started spending more time outside the dormitory at night, sneaking out to attend parties and meeting with older students who influenced her negatively. She became notorious for breaking curfew and skipping morning prep. Alice began spending more time with male classmates and even some of the teachers. She was often seen chatting and laughing with them in the school corridors and during lunch breaks. She would sit close to the male students in class, ignoring the presence of her female friends. Alice even started receiving special attention from some of the male teachers. She would be seen lingering around them, always laughing, and getting extra help in subjects she never used to struggle with. But it wasn't just the students or teachers. She began having long, private conversations with the school principal. Alice was often seen in his office after school hours. Rumors spread that she had developed a close connection with him, and some of the male students joked about it. Alice seemed unfazed by the gossip. To her, the attention felt validating. She never considered the implications of being constantly seen with the men around the school. She loved the admiration it brought her. Her grades dropped drastically. Teachers tried to call her mother again, but she refused to listen. "Alice is just going through a phase," she said. "She will be fine." Meanwhile, Alice continued down the wrong path. She spent nights sneaking out of the dormitory, ignoring her mother's calls, and making choices that affected her future. One day, she and her friends were caught sneaking into a senior students' hostel, staying out till morning. The dormitory matron warned her several times, but Alice ignored her. Rumors spread around the school, but her mother still refused to believe anything negative about her daughter. One fateful day, Alice missed school. Then another. Weeks passed, and people started whispering. One of her classmates later confirmed the shocking news: Alice had dropped out due to a serious illness. When Mrs. Helen heard, she collapsed in shock. But the worst was yet to come. Alice's health condition worsened, and she realized she had made poor choices that affected her future. Alice was diagnosed with a sexually transmitted infection, STI, a result of her reckless behavior and relationships with multiple men in the school. The doctors explained that the condition had gone undetected for a long time, and now it was affecting her health severely. She was devastated, ashamed, and deeply regretful of her actions. As Alice lay in the hospital bed, recovering from treatment, she could no longer deny the consequences of her choices. The relationships she had allowed herself to be part of, the parties, the late nights, and the men, everything had led her to this painful moment. Her self-destructive path had not only hurt her physically but had cost her her education and reputation. Sitting on her bed in the dormitory, Alice wept bitterly, regretting her decisions. She thought about how she had once been a brilliant student with a promising future. How had things gone so wrong? Her mother, in tears, held her hands and whispered, "I should have listened. I should have corrected you earlier." But Alice, tears streaming down her face, looked at her mother and blamed her for what had happened. "You were always so focused on defending me, Mom. You never listened to the teachers when they tried to warn you. If you had, maybe I wouldn't be in this mess." It was a painful realization for Mrs. Helen, but Alice knew it was true. If her mother had taken a stronger stance earlier, perhaps she could have stopped the downward spiral before it was too late. After her treatment, Alice realized that she needed to change her life. She decided to take control of her future. Alice enrolled in a new school, determined to start fresh. She found new friends who valued education, and she began to focus on her studies once again. Her attitude shifted as she worked hard to rebuild her life and restore her sense of purpose. Though the road ahead was difficult, Alice knew she had learned a valuable lesson. Her past mistakes had cost her dearly, but she was now committed to making the right choices for her future. Alice vowed never to let herself be led astray again. Kindly subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the notification button to be the first to see our videos.